Terry hunched over his keyboard, his fingers flying across the keys as lines of code filled the screen. The office around him buzzed with the usual Friday afternoon energy, but he remained focused, determined to squash this particularly annoying bug before the weekend. "Hey, Terry, we're heading out for drinks. You coming?" Jake from marketing called out, already halfway to the elevator. Terry's shoulders tensed. He glanced up, forcing a smile. "Thanks, but I've got plans." The lie slipped out easily, practiced from years of use. Jake shrugged. "Suit yourself, man. See you Monday." As the office emptied, Terry let out a long breath. Social interactions always left him feeling drained. He'd rather face 1,000 lines of buggy code than navigate the minefield of small talk and forced laughter. Hours ticked by. When Terry finally looked up from his screen, the office was dark and silent. He rubbed his eyes, surprised to find the sky outside already inky black. With a sigh, he gathered his things and headed out into the cool San Francisco night. The streets were alive with the usual Friday night crowd, laughing groups spilling out of bars, couples strolling hand in hand. Terry hunched his shoulders, feeling like a ghost drifting through their world. His apartment waited, a sanctuary of solitude and Star Trek reruns. As he cut through Golden Gate Park, a flash of brilliant blue light illuminated the sky. Terry froze, watching as what looked like a meteor streaked across the darkness. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, and heading straight for the park. The object crashed with a thunderous boom that shook the ground beneath his feet. Terry's heart raced. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to get as far away as possible. But curiosity, that constant companion of the scientifically minded, propelled him forward. He pushed through the undergrowth, following the trail of broken branches and scorched earth. The smell of ozone filled the air. As he neared the impact site, he heard a soft groan. Terry pushed aside a final branch and gasped. In the center of a small crater lay a woman, but not like any woman he'd ever seen before. Her skin shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence, her hair a cascade of what looked like living starlight, and her eyes, when they fluttered open to meet his, were a swirling galaxy of purple and gold. "Holy shit," Terry breathed. The woman struggled to sit up, wincing in pain. "Greetings, Earth creature," she said, her voice melodious but clearly strained. "I come in peace and... oh, what's the phrase your people use?" She frowned in concentration. "Ah, yes. I come in peace and would very much like to Netflix and chill with you." Terry blinked, momentarily stunned into silence. What?" The alien woman tilted her head, a look of confusion crossing her ethereal features. "Have I used the phrase incorrectly? I was led to believe it was a standard Earth greeting." Despite the absurdity of the situation, Terry found himself fighting back a laugh. "Not exactly," he managed. "Are you okay? That looked like a pretty rough landing." She attempted to stand but stumbled, crying out in pain. Terry rushed forward, catching her before she could fall. The moment his hands touched her skin, an electric tingle shot through his body. "My apologies," she said, leaning heavily against him. "My ship's navigation systems malfunctioned. I am Nera, Crown Princess of the Zarthali, and you are Terry," he replied automatically, still trying to process the fact that he was holding an honest-to-God alien in his arms. "Terry Chen. I'm a software engineer." Nera's eyes lit up. "Ah, a man of science and technology. How fortuitous. Perhaps you can assist me in repairing my vessel." Before Terry could respond, the sound of approaching sirens cut through the night air. Nera stiffened. "We must leave immediately. Your government's agents approach, and I cannot allow myself to be captured." "Wait, what? How do you know? Nera placed a hand on his chest, her eyes locking with his. Terry Chen, I know this is sudden and strange, but I need you to trust me. Will you help me? Terry hesitated. This was insane, completely, utterly insane. He should call the police, or the army, or someone. Anyone who was actually qualified to deal with honest-to-God aliens crash landing in the middle of San Francisco. But as he looked into Nera's swirling, otherworldly eyes, he felt something shift inside him. Here was the adventure he'd always dreamed of, the chance to be more than just another faceless cog in the Silicon Valley machine. And if he was being completely honest with himself, the idea of being whisked away by a beautiful alien princess was pretty damn appealing. Okay, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. What do we do? Nera's relief was palpable. Hold on tight, she instructed, wrapping her arms around him. The world around them began to shimmer and blur. Terry's stomach lurched as reality itself seemed to bend and twist. For a terrifying moment, he felt as if he was being pulled apart at the atomic level. Then, with a rush of displaced air, they materialized in a new location. Terry stumbled, his head spinning. As his vision cleared, he found himself standing in what could only be the interior of a spaceship. Sleek, organic curves melded seamlessly with pulsing crystalline structures. Holographic displays flickered to life around them, filled with symbols Terry couldn't begin to comprehend. It was like something out of his wildest sci-fi dreams. "Welcome aboard the Starfire," Nera said, a hint of pride in her voice. She moved to a central console, her fingers dancing over the controls. "I've engaged our cloaking systems. We should be undetectable to your planet's primitive scanning technology." Terry's mind reeled, struggling to process everything that had happened in the last few minutes. "Okay, hold on," he said, holding up his hands. "I think I'm going to need some explanations here. Who are you really? Why are you on Earth? And what did you mean about government agents?" Nera sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. For a moment, the regal alien princess facade slipped, and Terry caught a glimpse of genuine worry in her eyes. "You're right," she said softly. "You deserve the truth. Please, sit down. This may take some time to explain." Terry lowered himself into what he assumed was a chair, though it seemed to mold itself to his body as he sat. Nera remained standing, her starlight hair swirling gently as if moved by an unseen breeze. "As I said, I am Nera, Crown Princess of the Zarthali. My people are an ancient race, guardians of peace and knowledge across much of this galaxy. But we are dying, Terry. A curse placed upon us by our own ancestors is destroying us from within." She waved her hand and a holographic display sprang to life between them. Terry watched in horrified fascination as it showed a beautiful humanoid figure slowly disintegrating, its body seeming to turn to ash from the inside out. "When members of the royal bloodline reach a certain age, our bodies begin to break down," Nera continued, her voice tight with emotion. "No cure has been found. No technology can halt its progress. We've searched the far reaches of the galaxy for a solution, and finally, we discovered hope in the most unlikely of places, Earth." Terry's brow furrowed. "Earth? What could we possibly have that your advanced civilization doesn't?" A small smile played at the corners of Nera's lips. "You, or more specifically, your DNA. There's something unique about human genetic code, something that has the potential to counteract the curse. But it requires intimate contact to be effective." Terry's eyes widened as the implication sank in. "Intimate? You mean?" Nera nodded, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. "Yes. To save my people, I must mate with a human. And not just any human. Our scientists were able to narrow down the specific genetic markers needed. When I scanned you in the park, I discovered that you, Terry Chen, possess the exact DNA sequence required. Terry's mouth opened and closed several times, no sound coming out. His mind raced, trying to process this bombshell of information. Part of him wondered if this was all some elaborate prank, or if he had finally cracked under the pressure of work and was hallucinating the whole thing. "So let me get this straight," he finally managed. "You need to have sex with me to save your entire species from extinction." Nara winced slightly at his blunt phrasing. "It's a bit more complicated than that, but essentially, yes." Terry ran a hand through his hair, letting out a shaky laugh. "Wow, okay, that's a lot to take in." "I understand this is overwhelming," Nara said gently. "And I want you to know that I would never force you into anything. If you choose to help us, it must be of your own free will. But please understand, the fate of my entire civilization rests on this." Terry stood up abruptly, pacing the small space. His mind whirled with conflicting thoughts and emotions. On one hand, this was absolutely insane. He was just a normal guy, a slightly nerdy software engineer who could barely handle talking to women at bars. How was he supposed to deal with the pressure of saving an alien race? But on the other hand, wasn't this exactly the kind of adventure he'd always dreamed about? The chance to be a hero, to make a real difference in the universe? And if he was being completely honest with himself, the idea of getting intimate with the stunningly beautiful alien princess wasn't exactly a hardship. "What about the government agents you mentioned?" he asked, stalling for time as he tried to sort out his thoughts. Nara's expression darkened. "There are factions within your world's governments that are aware of extraterrestrial life. They would stop at nothing to capture me, to study and exploit my technology. I cannot allow that to happen." As if on cue, an alarm began to blare throughout the ship. Nara rushed to the console, her fingers flying over the controls. "They've found us," she said, her voice tight with tension. "Earth vessels are approaching rapidly. We need to leave orbit immediately." Terry's heart raced. This was it. The point of no return. Stay and return to his safe, predictable life. Or go and embark on an adventure beyond his wildest dreams. He took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "What do you need me to do?" Nara's eyes met his, filled with gratitude and something else. A spark of connection that sent a shiver down Terry's spine. "Take the seat next to me," she instructed. "We're going to have to outrun them." As Terry strapped himself in, the ship hummed to life around them. Through the view screen, he watched as the Earth, his home, grew smaller and smaller. "Hold on tight," Nara said, a hint of excitement creeping into her voice. "Things are about to get interesting." The stars blurred into streaks of light as the starfire leapt into faster-than-light travel. Terry's stomach lurched, but a grin spread across his face. Whatever happened next, he knew his life would never be the same. As they hurtled through the cosmos, leaving Earth far behind, Terry couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Here he was, a socially awkward software engineer suddenly thrust into the role of savior for an alien civilization, and all because he happened to have the right DNA and a penchant for late-night walks in the park. "Something amusing?" Nara asked, raising an eyebrow as she skillfully piloted the ship through the star-streaked void. Terry shook his head, still chuckling. "Just this whole situation. You know, when I woke up this morning, I was worried about debugging a particularly nasty bit of code. Now I'm on a spaceship, running from the government, about to embark on a mission to save an alien race through, intimate means." A small smile played at the corners of Nara's lips. I suppose it is rather extraordinary from your perspective, though I must admit I find your Earth customs equally perplexing. For instance, this Netflix and chill ritual. Is it truly a common mating practice among your people? Terry nearly choked on air. Well, it's not exactly. I mean, it can be, but he trailed off, feeling his face grow hot. Maybe we should focus on not getting caught by those government ships for now. An excellent suggestion, Nira agreed, her attention returning to the ship's controls. We'll need to make a series of random jumps to throw off any pursuit. It may be a bumpy ride. As if on cue, the ship lurched violently to the side. Terry gripped his seat, his knuckles turning white. So, how long have you been flying this thing? He asked, trying to keep the nervousness out of his voice. Nira's brow furrowed in concentration as she deftly maneuvered through a field of asteroids. Oh, about 3 of your Earth days, she replied casually. Terry's eyes widened in alarm. 3 days? But you seemed so confident when we took off. Nira shrugged, a mischievous glint in her eye. Confidence is key in any endeavor, wouldn't you agree? Besides, I'm a quick learner. As they emerged from the asteroid field, a proximity alarm blared through the ship. A massive vessel loomed before them, easily dwarfing the Starfire. Zartha Ali cruiser, Nira muttered, her expression darkening. They must have tracked my departure from our homeworld. I thought we were running from Earth government ships, Terry said, confusion and fear warring in his voice. Nira's fingers danced over the controls, bringing up a series of holographic displays. It seems we're running from multiple parties now. How exciting for you, Terry Chen. Your first interstellar adventure is shaping up to be quite the tale. Despite the dire situation, Terry couldn't help but laugh. You know, most first dates usually just involve dinner and a movie, but I guess fleeing from 2 different sets of pursuers across the galaxy works too. Nira glanced at him, a smile tugging at her lips. Oh? Is this a date then? How delightful. I do hope I'm making a good first impression. Before Terry could formulate a response, the ship rocked violently. Warning lights flashed across the control panel. They've locked on with a tractor beam, Nira growled, her playful demeanor vanishing. I can break free, but it's going to take all of our power. We'll be dead in space afterward. Terry's mind raced. He might not know anything about alien technology, but problem-solving was what he did best. What if we reverse the polarity of our own energy systems? Could we use their tractor beam against them like a slingshot? Nira's eyes widened. That's brilliant, risky, but it just might work. Her fingers flew over the controls, implementing Terry's suggestion. Brace yourself. The Starfire shuddered, caught between the pull of the tractor beam and the push of its own reverse systems. For a heart-stopping moment, Terry thought they were going to be torn apart. Then, with a surge of power, they broke free, shooting past the larger ship at impossible speeds. As they hurtled through space, alarms blaring and systems failing around them, Terry found himself laughing again. Nira joined in, her melodious voice mingling with his. Well, Terry Chen, she said, as their laughter subsided, her eyes shining with a mixture of adrenaline and admiration. It seems I chose my human companion wisely. Perhaps there's hope for my people yet. As the Starfire drifted, temporarily powerless but free, Terry met Nira's gaze. In that moment, despite the danger and uncertainty that lay ahead, he knew he had made the right choice. Whatever happened next, this was going to be one hell of an adventure. As the Starfire drifted through the vast emptiness of space, its systems slowly coming back online, Terry found himself staring out the view screen, still trying to process the whirlwind of events that had led him here. Just hours ago, he'd been a nobody software engineer in San Francisco. Now he was hurtling through the cosmos with an alien princess, apparently destined to save her entire race. A credit for your thoughts? Nira's melodious voice broke through his reverie. Terry turned to find her watching him, a curious expression on her otherworldly face. Just trying to wrap my head around all this, he admitted. It's a lot to take in. Nira nodded, her starlight hair shimmering with the movement. I understand. Perhaps a tour of the ship would help ground you. There's much to see, and we have some time before we reach Zarthal. As they moved through the Starfire's sleek corridors, Terry's natural curiosity began to override his shock. He peppered Nira with questions about the ship's technology, his eyes lighting up at each new discovery. This is incredible, he breathed, examining a device that seemed to manipulate gravity itself. The applications for this kind of tech are endless. Nira smiled, a warmth in her eyes that hadn't been there before. You have quite the mind, Terry Chen. I'm impressed by how quickly you grasp these concepts. Terry felt a flush of pride at her words. It had been a long time since anyone had truly appreciated his intellect. Thanks, he said, rubbing the back of his neck self-consciously. I've always been good with puzzles and problems. It's why I went into software engineering. A valuable skill, Nira mused, one that may prove crucial in the days to come. As they continued their tour, Terry couldn't help but notice the way Nira seemed to find excuses to brush against him or stand just a little too close. At first, he chalked it up to cultural differences, but when she accidentally backed into him, pressing her lithe body against his for a moment longer than necessary, he began to suspect there might be more to it. Oh, my apologies, Nira said, her voice low and breathy. These corridors are so narrow. Terry swallowed hard, his heart racing. No problem, he managed, trying to ignore the tingling sensation where her body had touched his. Days passed in a blur of interstellar travel and crash courses in alien technology. Terry threw himself into learning everything he could about the ship, determined to make himself useful. He even managed to optimize several of the Starfire's systems, earning him genuine praise from Nira and her small crew. One evening, as Terry was finishing up a shower in the ship's compact bathroom, the door suddenly slid open. He yelped in surprise, scrambling to cover himself as Nira stepped in, completely naked and apparently unperturbed. "Oh!" she exclaimed, her eyes widening in feigned innocence. "I didn't realize the facilities were occupied. How careless of me." Terry stood frozen, water dripping down his body, acutely aware of Nira's gaze roaming over him. I was just finishing," he stammered. Nira made no move to leave. Instead, she stepped closer, reaching past him to adjust the water controls. "Since I'm here, I might as well join you," she said casually. "It's more efficient this way, don't you think?" Before Terry could formulate a response, Nira was standing under the spray with him, her iridescent skin glistening with water droplets. He tried desperately to keep his eyes above her neckline, but it was a losing battle. "Is this not a common practice among your people?" Nira asked, her tone innocent but her eyes dancing with mischief. Terry let out a strangled laugh. Not usually, no." "How peculiar," Nira mused, reaching for a bottle of soap. "Here, allow me to assist you." As her soapy hands glided over his chest and shoulders, Terry's mind short-circuited. This was happening. This was actually happening. He was taking a shower with an alien princess and she was, oh God, she was washing his back now. "You're very tense, Terry," Nira observed, her fingers working at a knot in his shoulder. "Perhaps I can help you relax." It took every ounce of Terry's willpower to step away. I think I'm clean enough," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "Thank you for the, assistance." He practically fled the bathroom, his heart pounding and his thoughts in chaos. What the hell was that? Was she really interested in him? Or was this just some alien misunderstanding of human customs? As the days wore on, Nara's flirtations became increasingly bold. She seemed to delight in finding ways to touch him, to invade his personal space in ways that left him flustered and aroused. One memorable incident involved her accidentally spilling a viscous alien beverage all over his lap, then insisting on cleaning it up herself. "Oh dear, how clumsy of me," she purred, her hands lingering perhaps a bit too long in certain areas. "We mustn't let this stain your clothing." Terry squirmed, caught between embarrassment and a growing desire he couldn't quite suppress. "It's fine, really," he squeaked. "I can clean it myself." But Nira was relentless, her touch both maddening and electrifying. By the time she finished her ministrations, Terry was a blushing, stammering mess. Despite the tension building between them, Terry found himself growing genuinely fond of Nara. Behind her flirtatious exterior and regal bearing, he discovered a sharp mind and a dry wit that matched his own. They spent hours discussing everything from advanced physics to the intricacies of Earth pop culture, each fascinated by the other's perspective. As they neared Zartal, however, the reality of their situation began to weigh heavily on Terry. He was falling for Nira hard, but was any of this real? Or was he just a means to an end, a necessary component in saving her people? The Starfire dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder, revealing a breathtaking vista of swirling nebulae and shimmering planets. At the center of it all hung Zarthal, a world of impossible beauty that made Terry's heart ache with its alien majesty. "Welcome to my home," Nira said softly, a hint of melancholy in her voice. As they descended through the planet's atmosphere, Terry's awe quickly turned to apprehension. The spires of the royal city gleamed with an otherworldly light, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into a viper's nest. His fears were confirmed almost immediately upon their arrival. A delegation of Zarthali nobles met them at the spaceport, their faces masks of barely concealed disdain as they laid eyes on Terry. "Your Highness," one of them, a tall, severe-looking male, stepped forward. "We are relieved to see you return safely, but this creature you've brought with you, surely you don't mean to go through with this madness?" Nara's eyes flashed dangerously. "Mind your tone, Lord Vextor. This creature is our people's best hope for survival. You would do well to show him respect." Vextor's lip curled in a sneer. "Respect? For a primitive alien? Your time away has addled your mind, Princess. The Council will never agree to this. Abomination." Terry bristled at the insult, but before he could speak, Nara's hand found his, squeezing gently. The touch sent a jolt through him, grounding him in the moment. "The Council will do as I command," Nara said, her voice ringing with authority. "Or have you forgotten who wears the crown?" The next few days were a whirlwind of political maneuvering and thinly veiled hostility. Terry found himself thrust into a world of alien intrigue he was woefully unprepared for. Every word, every gesture seemed loaded with hidden meaning, and he constantly felt like he was one misstep away from causing an interplanetary incident. Through it all, Nara was his anchor. She guided him through the complex web of Zarthali etiquette, always ready with a reassuring touch or a whispered word of encouragement. But even she couldn't shield him entirely from the cutting remarks and dismissive glances of the royal court. "I don't belong here," Terry confessed one evening, collapsing onto a ridiculously ornate couch in Nera's private chambers. "I'm just a guy who's good with computers. I don't know how to play these political games." Nera sat beside him, closer than strictly necessary. "You belong here more than any of them," she said fiercely. "You're brave and kind and brilliant. Don't let their small-mindedness make you doubt yourself." Terry looked at her, really looked at her, and felt his heart swell. In that moment, he wanted nothing more than to pull her close and kiss her. But the nagging doubt remained. Was this real? Or was he just projecting his own feelings onto a situation born of necessity? "Nera," he began hesitantly, "all of this, the flirting, the touching, is it just because you need me to save your people? Or is there something more?" Nera's eyes widened, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her features. For a long moment she was silent, and Terry felt his stomach twist with anxiety. Finally she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "At first, yes. It was about duty, about doing whatever was necessary to save my people. But now," she reached out, cupping his face gently, "now I find myself wishing circumstances were different, that we had met under simpler terms." Terry's breath caught in his throat. "So you do feel something?" Nera nodded, a sad smile playing at her lips. "More than I should, perhaps. But Terry, you must understand. My first duty is to my people. I cannot allow personal feelings to interfere with what must be done." The words hit Terry like a physical blow. He understood, of course he did, but that didn't make it hurt any less. "Right," he said, trying to keep the bitterness from his voice. "Of course. The fate of your entire species is at stake. What's one human's feelings compared to that?" Nera flinched as if he'd struck her. "Terry, please, don't make this harder than it already is." He stood abruptly, needing space, needing air. "I think I need some time alone," he said, not meeting her eyes. "If that's allowed, Your Highness." Without waiting for a response, he strode from the room, his heart heavy and his mind in turmoil. As the door slid shut behind him, he missed the look of anguish that crossed Nera's face, the way she reached out as if to call him back. Alone in the alien corridor, surrounded by the oppressive grandeur of a world he didn't belong in, Terry felt more lost than he ever had before. He'd come to save a species, but in the process, he might just lose his heart. Terry wandered the alien corridors of the Zarthali Palace, his mind a tumult of conflicting emotions. The opulent surroundings, once a source of wonder, now felt suffocating. He found himself in a secluded garden, the alien flora pulsing with bioluminescence in the twilight. Sinking onto a bench that seemed to be grown from living crystal, he buried his face in his hands. "Trouble in paradise, Earthling?" Terry's head snapped up to find Lord Vexistor regarding him with thinly veiled contempt. The Zarthali nobleman's lip curled in a sneer. "I'm fine," Terry muttered, not in the mood for the alien's barbs. Vexitor's eyes narrowed. "Are you? You don't look fine. You look like a man who's just realized he's in over his head." Terry bristled. "What do you want, Vexitor?" The nobleman circled Terry, predatory. "I want you gone, Earthling. You don't belong here. You're a primitive creature meddling in affairs beyond your comprehension." "I'm here because Nera needs me," Terry shot back, standing to face Vextor, "to save your people." Vextor laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "Save us? You fool! Do you even know what you're agreeing to?" A chill ran down Terry's spine. "What are you talking about?" "The joining ritual," Vextor said, his voice dripping with disdain. "It's not some simple mating. It's dangerous, potentially fatal for a weak species like yours." Terry's heart raced. "You're lying." "Am I?" Vexter's eyes glittered with malice. Ask your precious princess. Ask her what happens when our kind experiences the great pleasure. Ask her how many of her suitors have survived it. Before Terry could respond, Vexter turned on his heel and stalked away, leaving Terry with a growing sense of dread. Hours later, Terry stood before Nera in her private chambers, his face a mask of hurt and betrayal. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Nera wouldn't meet his eyes. "Terry, Don't," he cut her off. "Just don't. Vexator told me everything. The ritual, the danger. How could you keep this from me?" Nera's shoulders slumped. "I was afraid," she whispered. "Afraid that if you knew the truth, you'd leave. And without you, my people are doomed." Terry laughed bitterly. "So that's all I am to you? A sacrificial lamb?" "No!" Nera's eyes flashed with pain. "You're so much more than that, Terry. I care for you deeply. That's why I can't go through with this. I won't risk your life." Terry stared at her, conflict raging within him. Part of him wanted to walk away to wash his hands of this whole insane situation. But as he looked at Nera, saw the anguish in her otherworldly eyes, he knew he couldn't abandon her or her people. "I'll do it," he said quietly. Nera's head snapped up. "What? No, Terry, you can't." "I can and I will," he interrupted. "You brought me here to save your people. That's what I'm going to do. But you could die." Terry shrugged, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "Well, if I'm going to go out, might as well be in a blaze of glory, right? Or should I say, a blaze of great pleasure?" Nera stared at him for a long moment, then burst into laughter tinged with hysteria. "You impossible man," she said, shaking her head. "You beautiful, brave, foolish man." The day of the ritual arrived with a sense of foreboding. Terry stood before an ornate altar in the heart of the royal palace, surrounded by chanting priests and wary nobles. Nera approached, resplendent in ceremonial robes that seemed to shimmer with starlight. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered as she took her place beside him. Terry nodded, trying to project a confidence he didn't entirely feel. "Too late to back out now. Besides, I've always wondered what great pleasure feels like." Nera's lips twitched in a suppressed smile. "Incorrigible to the end." The head priest stepped forward, raising his arms. "Let the joining begin." A swirling vortex of energy erupted from the altar, enveloping Terry and Nera. The world around them dissolved, reality itself seeming to bend and warp. When the light faded, they found themselves in a realm of pure energy, pulsing with otherworldly power. "What is this place?" Terry gasped, his voice echoing strangely. "The heart of the curse," Nera replied, her form shimmering and insubstantial. "The source of our people's affliction and our power." A booming voice reverberated through the ethereal space. "Who dares disturb the ancient pact?" Terry squared his shoulders. "We do. Terry Chen of Earth and Nera, crown princess of the Zarthali." A figure coalesced before them, a being of pure energy that radiated ancient power. "The pact cannot be broken. It is the price of your people's hubris, princess." "What hubris?" Terry demanded. "What did the Zarthali do to deserve this curse?" Images flashed around them, visions of a vast empire spanning galaxies, worlds burning, species enslaved. Terry recoiled in horror. "Your ancestors," he breathed, turning to Nera. "They were conquerors." Nera nodded, her expression pained. "We were taught that we were benevolent rulers, spreading civilization across the stars. But this is monstrous." The energy being's voice boomed again. "The curse was placed to limit your power to prevent the rise of another tyrant. It cannot be broken." Terry's mind raced. This was about more than just saving Nera's people. It was about righting an ancient wrong, about transformation on a cosmic scale. "What if there was another way?" he called out. "A way to ensure the Zarthaali never abuse their power again." The being's energy pulsed with interest. "Speak, Earthling." Terry took a deep breath. "On my world, we have a system called democracy. The people choose their leaders, and those leaders are accountable to the people. No one person holds absolute power." He turned to Nera. "You could transform your society, create a government that serves the people, not the other way around. Show the universe that the Zarthaali have changed." Nera's eyes widened as she grasped the implications. "A constitutional monarchy," she breathed, "with a democratically elected council to balance the crown's power." The energy being's form flickered. "An intriguing proposal, but words are wind. How can we trust that this change will last?" "Because I'll make it last," Nera said, her voice ringing with determination. "I swear on my life and the lives of all my descendants. The days of Zarthaali tyranny are over." For a long moment, silence reigned in the ethereal realm. Then, slowly, the energy being began to dissipate. "The pact is remade," it intoned. "But beware, princess. Should you or your descendants ever seek absolute power again, the curse will return tenfold." With a blinding flash, Terry and Nera found themselves back in the physical world, sprawled on the altar. The assembled Zarthaali gasped in shock as Nera's skin began to glow with renewed vitality. "It worked," she breathed, examining her hands in wonder. "The curse is lifted." Terry grinned weakly. "Great. Now, if you don't mind, I think I'm going to pass out for a bit." As consciousness faded, he heard Nera's laughter, felt her arms encircling him. For the first time since this crazy adventure began, he felt truly at peace. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of political upheaval and societal transformation. Terry watched in awe as Nera masterfully navigated the treacherous waters of Zarthaali politics, slowly but surely guiding her people towards a new form of government. There were setbacks, of course. Some, like Lord Vextor, resisted the changes fiercely. But as the curse's effects began to fade across the population, even the most ardent opponents had to admit that something had to change. Through it all, Terry found himself by Nera's side, offering advice and support. His outsider's perspective proved invaluable as the Zarthaali grappled with concepts like checks and balances and separation of powers. One evening, as they stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city, Nera turned to Terry with a mischievous glint in her eye. "You know," she purred, stepping closer, "we never did complete the joining ritual." Terry's heart raced. "I thought that was just a pretext for lifting the curse." Nera's laugh was low and sultry. "Oh, it was much more than that. And now that we're not under the pressure of saving an entire species—" She trailed off, her meaning clear. Terry swallowed hard. "What about the whole great pleasure thing? I thought that was dangerous for humans." Nera's smile widened. "I think we've proven that humans are far more resilient than we gave them credit for. Besides," she added, her voice dropping to a whisper, "I'll be gentle. At first." What followed was a night of passion beyond anything Terry had ever experienced. True to her word, Nera started gently, but as the night wore on, she unleashed the full force of Zarthaali sensuality. Terry lost himself in a haze of pleasure so intense it bordered on the spiritual. When dawn broke, they lay tangled together, breathless and sated. Terry stroked Nera's starlight hair, marveling at the turn his life had taken. "So," he said, trying to keep his tone casual, Where do we go from here? I mean, you're still a princess with a planet to run, and I'm just a guy from Earth." Nira propped herself up on one elbow, regarding him seriously. "Terry Chen, you are far more than just a guy from Earth. You've saved my people, transformed our society, and—" She paused, a soft smile playing at her lips. "You've captured my heart." Terry's breath caught in his throat. "Yeah? Yes," Nira said firmly, "which is why I have a proposal for you. How would you like to be Earth's first ambassador to Zarthal?" Terry's eyes widened. "Me? An ambassador?" Nira nodded. "Who better? You understand both our worlds now." And, she added with a sly grin, "it would give us an excellent excuse to spend a lot of time together." Terry laughed, pulling her close for a kiss. "Well, when you put it like that, how can I refuse?" Years passed, and the changes wrought by Terry and Nira's actions reverberated across the galaxy. The Zarthali, once feared as conquerors, became known as peacekeepers and mediators. Their advanced technology, no longer hoarded by a privileged elite, was shared to uplift less developed worlds. Terry, in his role as Earth's ambassador, became the bridge between two worlds. He worked tirelessly to foster understanding and cooperation between humans and Zarthali. And if his close relationship with the planet's beloved princess raised a few eyebrows, well, that was just good diplomacy. Nira, true to her word, ruled alongside an elected council. Under their joint leadership, Zarthal entered a new golden age, one built on principles of freedom and equality rather than conquest and subjugation. And if, in the privacy of their chambers, the princess and her ambassador engaged in frequent diplomatic negotiations that left them both glowing with more than just political satisfaction, who could blame them? Their love became legendary, a symbol of hope and unity for both their peoples. And when a few years later Nira gave birth to twins, a boy with Terry's eyes and a girl with her mother's starlight hair, the entire galaxy celebrated the dawn of a new era. As Terry cradled his daughter, marveling at the tiny points of light that danced across her skin, he couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. From a lonely software engineer to the father of a new hybrid species, all because he'd taken a walk in the park at the right moment. "What's so amusing?" Nira asked, their son nestled against her chest. Terry shook his head, grinning. "Just thinking about how it all started. You know, when I wished for some excitement in my life, I was thinking more along the lines of a new project at work. Not all this." Nira's laughter joined his. "Are you complaining?" "Not for a second," Terry said, leaning in to kiss her. As their lips met, he felt the familiar tingle of Zarthali energy flowing between them. It was a reminder of how far they'd come and the incredible journey that still lay ahead. Outside their window, the twin moons of Zarthal rose over a city gleaming with hope and possibility. And in that moment, Terry knew that no matter what challenges the future held, they would face them together, one human, one alien, and the love that had transformed worlds.